Hey guys, happy Thursday, happy Hoerner happy hour. I'm Kate. If you're new to the group, do this every week, answering questions. First and foremost, I need to say, make sure there's been a lot of posts in this group, which I love. I love that you guys all are chatting with each other, asking questions, just coming in and sharing your wins, sharing your struggles, all that. I love it. I love it. Keep doing it. The only thing I would ask is if you have a question for me or you just want me to see something, you're talking to me specifically, tag me in the post because it's getting to a point where Facebook is not even notifying me of everyone's posts. So I'm not ignoring you. I promise. I just didn't see it. So if you tag me in it, I will definitely get notified. So if it's a question, it's a comment, whatever it is, just make sure you tag me so that I see it. Most of you are doing that. So good job. Anyone who isn't, just now you know. So we don't have a ton of questions today. It's probably not going to take too long for me to run through these. If you guys are hopping on and you have questions, pop them in the comments. I'll try to get to them before I finish up. If not, as always, like I say, put them in the comments. I'll answer them next week. So it's been a relatively slow summer. Hopefully for everyone, you're learning a lot and you're kind of, getting a lot out of these Hoerner happy hours because that's the goal. So first question came from, I forget who asked it, but we were talking about conferences. Somebody asked about the IDEA conference, which I have heard a lot of good things about. The only thing I would say with that, and really with any conference, I wanted to talk about conferences in general. There are a ton of them if you're seeking them out, especially in Boston. I don't know about you guys. We have a lot of free workshops and conferences and things like that. And then obviously there's paid ones, which are usually a little bit better, a little bit more value there. When it comes to deciding what conferences to go to, I personally don't get to go to all the ones I want to because I'm working. I can't leave the studio. I can't leave my business. I can't leave my consulting gig. There's just too much going on. So I have to be very picky and choosy, which means that I'm going to spend a lot of time making sure that the places that I go are worth my time, especially because when it comes to these conferences, we have to travel a lot. So whether it's the IDEA conference, URSA, I think that's a great one. There's a spinning conference, I think at WSSC, I think it was in Florida. There's, like I said, a lot of local conferences. So when you're taking a look at that sort of thing, I would always check the agenda and the speakers. There's usually always going to be an agenda posted ahead of time with the speakers. If not, you can usually email the event coordinators and they can give you an idea, because you want to make sure it's worth your time. If you just went to another conference or you just did a workshop or some sort of continuing ed on a specific subject and that's half the conference, it might have been a waste if you show up and you realize that and you kind of wish you spent your money elsewhere. So I would just do a lot of research beforehand. You can. You don't have to just see, the name of the conference and think, oh, that's what I do for a living, so it's going to be helpful. It might not be. So again, just check the agenda, check who the speakers are, look them up, do a little research on them. Think like whatever they do is probably what they're going to talk about. So that's going to be the subject of their piece. Or maybe you go to a conference, but you don't go to all, 3 days of it. Maybe you just go to one, or you got to consider the travel time too. And I think I always have to think about it with how busy my days are now, opportunity cost. So if I'm spending time traveling and I'm spending money on a conference and all that time at a conference, I could have spent all that time and money elsewhere. And so if it's not worth my time, I'm going to be super disappointed. So I would just think about it like that. Is it really worth your time? Is it really something that you think you're going to get a lot out of? If it is, then go. Because in addition to whatever the subject is that you want to learn about, you're probably also going to meet a lot of cool people. And there's always a lot of benefits to going to conferences. Networking is huge in any industry, but especially in fitness, because you'll learn a lot more than you even knew existed. But again, just make sure you're thinking about the opportunity costs and the actual costs that you could be spending elsewhere when you're looking at these conferences. And that goes for continuing education of any sort of training, any sort of workshop. I think often when we're insecure in certain places of our jobs, especially as instructors, we crave more. We just want to learn more. We want to keep learning, keep educating ourselves because we think that's going to block up those insecurities and make us more confident, when really You got to dig down deep and figure out what's holding you back and then focus on that. It's not always about knowing more because you guys know a ton already. It's really about working on those trouble areas and sometimes just getting out there and getting the experience. So don't always think that more and more is better. It's not always the case. So that's my thought on conferences. Again, I would check some local ones first. I know there's a couple. I've been to a couple general assembly things. That's more for like social media related things and business things, but there's a lot of stuff that's offered for free or cheap locally too. So keep a lookout for that kind of stuff if it's helpful for what you're looking for. Next question. Amy asked a boring question, she says, about opinions and experiences with different types of flooring, vinyl versus rolled rubber, for example. Does anyone know? So I do think that is a business owner question. I'm sure people have opinions on it if they've taught more than one place. I was going to start my own studio, maybe will someday in the future. So I spent actually a lot of time on this. I came to the conclusion that the LVT flooring was the best. I think it's luxury vinyl something. I don't know. Just tell them LVT. But I would be careful because there are a lot of places if it's hardwood or any sort of slippery rubber. As soon as that gets wet, it's a huge liability. People are going to fall and trip. And I know a lot of spin studios who accidentally used the wrong type of rubber, and it was so slippery that they had to go back in and change their floors after the fact because it was causing so many issues. So if you get rubber, just make sure you're careful with it. If you get the rubber tiles, make sure it's properly sealed. But honestly, what I did and what you could do as well is call a flooring company. You could actually just Google gym flooring companies. There's a billion of them out there, surprisingly, and just talk to someone. Ask them, what do you normally put in an indoor cycling studio? What are the cost benefits of maybe a couple different options? And just get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to say, because they'll give you everything you need to know. And especially if they think you're going to get your business, it will be the most helpful way to get that information. Googling, not so much, because everyone has an opinion and it's not, a lot of things have changed with flooring recently that it might actually not be accurate anymore. So I really suggest calling one or two companies, getting someone who's experienced on the phone and just asking them. That's probably the best way to do it. Okay, last question. Elena, she had a tough situation in class. 10 minutes in, this is the worst, isn't it? 10 minutes in, someone came in, fumbled with the bike, and eventually left because she probably couldn't figure out how to get on it, and she didn't know what to do. So Elena said that she was right in the meat of the class, which I'm sure you were about 10 minutes in. You were starting to get into it, so she didn't want to get off her bike. I totally get that. This is such an issue, right? Well, first and foremost, I would say make sure you have a sign up on the front of the door, or if you're in a commercial gym, on the sign-up sheet for class, or when people are coming in, have the front desk people tell them that after 5-10 minutes max, nobody's allowed in. At that point, it's not only a disruption, but as you saw, it's dangerous if they're trying to figure out the bike and it's dark and it's tough. So I would say, first and foremost, make sure that's publicized. Maybe announce it to your class next time. Say, by the way, guys, I don't want you coming in late, blah, blah, blah. It's probably someone who's new. If you didn't recognize her, that does happen a lot. But again, that's kind of up to the front desk or some sort of sign or something to make sure that that doesn't happen again. It will happen anyways. So what I would do, I'm assuming you have a mic on. I would get your class ready, get them in whatever they're doing. Continue to coach them on the mic as you dismount and start to walk towards the new person who came in late. Turn your mic off once you get them all set up. Help them with their bike a little bit, or honestly, you could just tell them it's too late, you gotta go. If they're really struggling with their bike, or if they're brand new, they can't come in 10 minutes in. It's just too dangerous. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to set up their bike. There's too many what ifs. So you can do one of those two things. Either tell them, I'm sorry, it's too late into class, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Or if it looks like they kind of got their bearings, maybe help them adjust their bike, help them get on so you know they're safely on their bike, and then turn your mic back on and continue to coach until you get back on your bike. It's a good exercise of getting off the bike if it's not something you do people will probably be a little surprised to see you dismount. That's fine. They'll keep going. As long as you continue to coach them and you don't sound surprised or confused or anything, you're just going status quo, then they'll be fine. It's very tough because you're basically managing two things at once, teaching a class and helping someone new get comfortable on the bike. So it's not easy, but if you do everything you can to avoid that with the signs, letting the front desk know, all that, and then if it still happens, like I said, I think dismounting and going over to the person, whether you're telling them to leave or helping them set up, is kind of the best way to handle it. It's never easy, and it happens a lot, and it's very frustrating, especially in a spin room where we dim, most of you probably dim the lights. It gets super distracting for people, and it's very dangerous, so we got to be careful with those situations. But I totally get why you didn't get off. Once you're in it, you don't want everyone else to lose the value of starting to get into the ride. But I think it's important if someone new comes in, just to make sure nothing crazy happens, to go over there and talk to them. All right, so I think that's all we have for today. I don't see any questions in the comments, so if you guys have more, you know the drill. Post them in the group, tag me, I'll get them next week. Other than that, I'm going to let you go and have a wonderful rest of your week, guys. See you later.